Pujya Swamiji, Pujya Junior Swamiji, my dear friend Prakash Rao, and devotees of this great ashram and mutt, I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak a few words about we as Hindus. Oh, yes. Well, by my professor's standards, it's few words, but in terms of testing the patience, I will send it. Thank you, Swamiji, for your command. I'll certainly obey it. We are an extraordinary civilization. The world history has recorded 46 civilizations, of which 45 have disappeared. Greek civilization, Roman civilization, Egyptian Pharaoh civilization, Mesopotamia, Babylon, Zoroastrian, Iran, so on. But the 46th, which is the longest civilization, has survived everything, and that is the Hindu civilization of India. What were those characteristics that made Hindus different and that could survive? Hinduism was based not on the words of a prophet or on doctrinaire directions. It was revelations which the rishis recorded and put it in books, where part of it, particularly on behavioral aspects, which we call as the smritis, could be amended from time to time depending on new experiences. Our rishis were never wrong. Long before Europe ever even thought about it, our rishis used to say that the earth goes round the sun. Whereas in Europe, for a long time it was believed that it is the sun which goes round the earth, and that's what is perceived. It looks as if the sun is going around the earth. And Galileo made bold to say that's not so, that his researches show that it is the earth which goes round the sun. A poor man had to go to jail, was tortured, and ultimately had to recant. So therefore, this scientific approach of Hinduism, of looking at the reality and then translating it into theory, it is that which has kept it vibrant. And throughout our centuries, it is the Swamijis and the Sadhus and the Sannyasis who have kept this religion alive. And that is why we have two parts to our religion: the religious precepts and the behavioral aspects, which we call as Hindutva. Hindutva means Hinduness, by which we mean the way we behave towards our elders, the way we behave to our sadhus and sannyasis, the way we behave towards our wives, or our wives towards the husbands, father to the son, father to the mother. These relationships that constitute Hindutva is unique. And it is that which has kept the fabric alive. While the world is seeing increasingly nuclear families where people forget their parents, forget their brothers and sisters, here it's an interlocking arrangement which always can be relied on in moments of crisis. So even though in our country we don't have social security, state protection, insurance, The society survives because of this interlocking arrangements in every family. So, therefore, Hinduism's first principle is it's a vibrant religion which relates to reality. Hinduism does not have a prophet, as I said, as Christianity does, as Islam does. It doesn't have a book. In fact, we have many books, and they vary in their abstraction. And at the same time, we don't have a temple or a church or a mosque. And it is in the districts, every district you will find these sadhus and sannyasis keeping the religion alive and kept it throughout. I was once asked by a Saudi Arabian who was studying religious histories of the world. He asked me, what is the secret of Hinduism that it has survived so long despite all the onslaughts? So I told him that by onslaughts you mean the Islamic onslaught and the Christian onslaught through the British. He said, yes. For us Muslims, what is puzzling is that every other country that we conquered, we were able to convert it to 100% Muslim or got wiped out. But in your country, and he gave me examples of countries which got converted. Iran, Zoroastrian country, got converted to 100% Islam. Mesopotamia, Babylon, which now become Iraq. Egypt. Europe was converted to Islam, to Christianity in 5 decades. But here there were 800 years of Islamic rule, 200 years of Christian rule through the British. And yet, even today, overwhelming majority of the population of India is Hindu. Credit goes to the faith of the people and the Swamijis who devoted their life. So this is the second aspect, the enormous faith the people have to the concepts of Hinduism, which is not based on the fundamental truth given by a prophet. And that is why, because we don't have a prophet, the prophet, and a book, it's impossible for a Hindu to be a fundamentalist. Because there's so many interpretations available. There's room for interpretations, room for discussion. Adi Shankara can come and give a total different perspective, and we'll accommodate it. And the third reason why Hinduism has survived so long is the social structure, which of course has got ossified recently over the last, say, 1,000 years. But the social structure was based on decentralization of power. As the two great rishis, Bhrigu and Bhardwaja, discussed this, Rishi Bhrigu felt that the sources of power are 4: knowledge, weapons, wealth, and land. And these should be decentralized and not in hands of one person. So if a person has knowledge, he will not have the other 3. Or if he specializes in knowledge, he will not have any of those other 3. So then came this class of rishis, munis, swamijis, who became the preachers of knowledge. But they lived very simply. They lived without any wealth, without any weapons, without any land. They didn't live for themselves. Even if they were living in a palace, for example, many of the rishis used to live in palaces, but their living style was simple. And the king who had the weapons and the power to control individuals, he used to bow before him, before these learned men of the country. Seek their advice, show humility by washing their feet. And therefore it was never a monarchy that as we saw in Europe, that India was. Same thing with those who accumulated wealth. There was nothing wrong with accumulating wealth. But social prestige and standing in society will not be determined by the amount of wealth you had, but by the amount of wealth you gave away in philanthropy. That would count, not how much wealth you had. Which is not so today. Today, you see, the more wealth you have, the more social status you have. So this was another aspect. And the same thing with those who had land. They had to produce for the society. We did have some people who were kept out of society, but their children were never treated as part of the same outcasted society. And we saw that when Valmiki became a Maharishi. Valmiki wrote the Ramayana. Valmiki is popularly accepted in the Dalit community as one of their own. Same thing with Veda Vyasa. He came, his mother was a fisherwoman. Kalidasa was a person who was going around in the forest cutting branches of trees. The greatest of our rishis, the rishi of rishis, Vishwamitra, was not born in a Brahmin house. He was born in a Kshatriya family. And he rose to such great heights that even the gods were scared of him. He even almost invented a parallel universe because the gods wouldn't let him entry. And ultimately, they acceded. So, and of course, if a Brahmin qualified to be a Brahmin breaks the law, he would be punished. And the Brahmins would not stand up for him. Ravan was a Brahmin. I don't know how many people know that Ravan was a Brahmin. He was born in the outskirts of Delhi in an area which is now called Noida. His wife Mandodari was from Meerut. I'm saying this to you that because Mr. Karunanidhi and his friends think that Ravan was a Dravidian belonging to Tamil Nadu and to the backward classes. Ravan was a Brahmin, went to Kailash, and Lord Shiva gave him a boon which he used to remove Kuber and occupy Sri Lanka. And when he broke the law by kidnapping Sita, he was then punished, killed by a Kshatriya. And all the Brahmins of India and all the people, all the Hindus of India worship him, Rama. So this was the way this society was structured, and that's why it has lasted so long. Now we are under a new siege. Today the Hindus are under a siege. And we as Hindus have to address this problem. We are under the siege of conversions. If any individual wants to convert away from Hinduism to another religion, no one will stop him. But if it is induced, if it is collective, it is for political gain, then we will oppose it. But there are powerful people who have come. And they have targeted many of our sadhus and sannyasis who have been subject to false cases. Take the Shankaracharya of Kanchi. He was accused of nothing less than a murder charge. Although he's been acquitted by the lowest court in a criminal trial, the Sessions Court. I mean, he has been freed from the conviction by the lowest court. When his bail application came before the Supreme Court said, we cannot quash this case even though we see no evidence of it whatsoever, and gave him bail. The Shankaracharya of Kanchi, one of the 5 Shankaracharyas that we all recognize, he is being arrested for a charge of murder and put in jail, and it takes 9 years to clear his name. What is that force which is behind it? Whatever that force is, this is something we have to worry about. We also are facing another new problem, and we are not learning from those who have faced this problem and suffered. And that is the problem of materialism. Materialism means acquisition of wealth for its own sake. Does it produce happiness? Obviously not. Because wherever I go, the ashram here, or Sri Ravi Shankar's, or Swami Dayanand Saraswati's, I see large number of Westerners there. I've asked them, what brings you here? And they're all very well-to-do people. Some of them are millionaires. And they all tell me only one thing, that yes, we have achieved whatever we can in the material world, but we are not happy. And we know that here in India, through the Hindu principles, not religious principles, but logical principles, we will be able to find that happiness. There are people who have gone to the extreme of even converting to Hinduism. They are welcome. Hinduism, you don't need any conversion ceremony. You have to just say, I'm a Hindu. You are a Hindu from the next moment. But there was a film actress called Julia Roberts, about whom you can read in the Google. She was an accomplished actress, recipient of many Oscars. She came to India, went to an ashram, and said to the Swamiji there the same thing, that I have everything I want materially, but I'm not happy. And I want to learn how to be happy. She spent some time in the ashram, returned back to the United States, called a press conference, and declared that she and her whole family had converted to Hinduism. But in our entire history, we have never led a religious war. The conversion to Buddhism of Southeast Asia and China was never done by force. We have always welcomed minorities from abroad and never asked them to convert. The Parsis came running from Zoroaster's Iran. We received them, we looked after them, we built their fire temples for them, and today they are the most prosperous community. They are everywhere in high places, vastly disproportionate to their strength. They may not be more than 60,000 today, but you will find the Chief Justice of India, Parsi, Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Parsi, Commander of the Air Marshal, Parsi, the Director General of the Coast Guard, Parsi, the Attorney General, Parsi, top lawyers, Parsis, top doctors, Parsis. People won't even think they are Parsis because they have become part of society. And when the British left India, they asked the Parsis in particular, like for Anglo-Indians, shall we make special provisions for you? They said, no, you go please. Hindus have looked after us, they will look after us in the future. That is the record we have as far as the minority is concerned. The Jews came and they were persecuted everywhere in the world. But when they came to India, we built the synagogues in Cochin and Bombay. We looked after them. And of course, when Israel was found, many of them went back. And we gave them a send-off. And Israeli parliament, after adopting its constitution, the first resolution they passed is to say, thank you, India, you are the only country where the Jews were never persecuted. In this context, I want to say that the Hindus are facing a special problem, and that is the question of Islam. We have no quarrel with Islam. In fact, when the first Islamic group came the Arabs came to Kerala, we not only received them, but we got them married to our family members. And therefore they were called Mapillai, which the English couldn't pronounce, so they called it Mopla. So the first time they came, we received them the same way we received Jews, we received the Parsis, and we received them with the same warmth. But Islam has a very clear ideology, which we have to come to grips with. Where they are in majority, they don't tolerate any minorities. Saudi Arabia, large number of Hindus are there as workmen. They will not let our Hindus build temples there. They will not let them celebrate Diwali. They will not let them even celebrate Satyanarayan Puja inside their houses. They will not even let a workman carry Ramchandraji's photo in his pocket. That's Saudi Arabia's theology. I'm not quarreling with it. But it's a reality. In India, the Islamic community is against uniform civil code. But they don't oppose it. In Australia, they accept uniform civil code in Australia. In the United States. Why they accept it there but not in India? Because as Muhammad very clearly says in Hadith, was quoted as saying in Hadith, where the Muslim is in a minority but the majority is amorphous, it is soft, there it is the duty of the Muslim to go and demand more and more and more. So therefore, India is a soft majority. In Australia, it's not a soft majority. In fact, one Imam had once said that he was not happy with the Uniform Civil Code of Australia. He wanted Shariat. And the Australian Prime Minister next day issued a statement that if you want the Shariat, please go for another country because Australia will never agree. And the following day, all Muslim organizations issued resolutions condemning the Imam as saying he doesn't represent the Islamic community. We are quite happy with the Uniform Civil Code. But in India, they made it an issue. I also find that in parts of India, where Muslims are in majority, the Hindu treatment to Hindu is terrible. Kashmir, 500,000 Hindus have been driven out. Internationally, they will talk about all kinds of things, but they will not talk about this particular thing. 500,000 Hindus have been driven out of their homes who are original Kashmiris, and they are living in refugee camps. In Malappuram, no Hindu is allowed to sell property to another Hindu. He can sell to a non-Hindu, but not to a Muslim, but not to another. So wherever we find in India, Muslims in majority, the same collective mind is shown. I don't blame them. Their mind is clear. I'm telling the Hindus, your mind is not clear. You are a confused lot. When Mahabharata was going on, and Karna was stuck in mud, his chariot got stuck in mud, so he bent down to pull it. So Krishna tells Arjuna, kill him now. So Arjuna says, I am a Kshatriya, how can I kill a man who is bending down to, totally unarmed? Then Krishna says, where was your morality when your wife's sari was being pulled off? This is the time when you have to even out, you must kill him. When Ram hid behind a tree and killed Bali, Bali, before dying, said to Ram, call yourself a Maryada Purushottam, and you have killed me by hiding behind a tree? Should have come before me and had a regular battle. I would have had respect for you. I would have died happily. But you hid behind a tree. Where is your morality, Maryada Purushottam? So Ram explains to him, who are you to give me lectures on morality? You stole Sugriva's wife. You stole his kingdom. Morality is between two moral people. It is never between an immoral person and a moral person. We are very clear. In times of peace, total morality. But if war is imposed, then the defense of the country becomes extremely important. Today, I am concerned that this country, which is tradition, its continuing civilization is Hindu, where we respect all religions. We have demonstrated that. We do not say that you should accept our culture. But at the same time, we assume that that all communities will work towards respecting each other's culture. I give you another example. In Saudi Arabia, they have been demolishing mosques left, right and center to build roads. They even demolished Bilal Masjid in Makkah, where Muhammad used to read namaz. So some archaeologists said that at least Bilal Masjid can be saved. The Saudi Arabian government was planning to build a palace for the king. And this was in the way, so they demolished it. So the Saudi Arabian government formally said that those who say that this mosque should be saved because it was where Muhammad read his namaz are actually victims of idol worship. And those who do that will be prosecuted under the Shariat. And they went ahead. I myself confirmed this by talking to the Saudi Arabian ambassador, that do you demolish masjid? He said yes. Why? He said because masjid is a facilitation center for reading namaz. Namaz can be read anywhere. The constitutional bench of the Indian Supreme Court has said exactly the same thing in 1994. So there are many masjids which have been built by demolishing temples. 3 are very prominent. Vrindavan, in Ayodhya, in Kashi Vishwanath. Of course, there are probably 300,000 temples which have been demolished, but I'm not concerned with those. Can't go back too far in history. But these are special punyasthans for us. I would assume that the Hindus and the Muslims should be able to sit together and work out a compromise by which the Muslims agreed to build another masjid a little away. Because after all, for us, temple is something special. A temple is always a temple. When I was law minister, this matter came to me when a Nataraja statue, which a farmer had accidentally discovered while ploughing, and so he dug up the ground and he brought out this Nataraja statue, in the Tandav pose, the great dancing Nataraja, and he showed it to everybody. It was from a temple which was in disuse in Tanjavur. Some touts came to know, they came to this farmer and said, we'll give you 25,000 rupees for this. Will you sell it to us? So he said, I don't know where to keep it, so take it. 25,000 is a lot of money. I'm now talking about 1974 or 75 when it happened. The matter came to me in 1990 because the touts went to England and sold it to an auctioneer. And an auction was going to take place in 1990. And so I sat with our books and saw that Indian temple is always a temple. Why? Because we do Prana Pratishtha Puja. Prana Pratishtha Puja means the Lord enters the idol. And once the Lord enters the idol, He becomes the owner of the temple. We can be trustees, but we cannot be owners. Nobody can be owner of a temple. It's the Lord who is the owner. And therefore, forever it is a temple. And this is the argument we moved in the House of Lords in England. It's a judgment is there. 1991 judgment. Where the House of Lords has said, return. Because the auctioneers said, we bought it for 25,000. And it is ours. No one was worshipping it. It was lying under the ground. And therefore, we have a right to sell it. It's our right. But the court held, maybe the temple is in disuse. But once the Prana Pratishtha Puja has been completed, whether the idol is being worshipped or not, whether the bhaktas are going to the temple or not, it shall always remain a temple, and therefore return the Nataraja statue to the temple. So there you are. If that is so, then Vrindavan temple will always be a temple. If that is so, then Ayodhya temple will always be a temple. And so will be the Kashi Vishwanath temple. I think here, an assertive Indian, I am not calling for any unauthorized action. I am saying a legitimate government has a right to take this up and see to it that a compromise is worked out. And I am 100% certain that when a compromise is attempted, the government, the Muslim community would be ready. I tried it as a law minister. We came very close to an agreement. But unfortunately, our government fell, and the successor Narasimha Rao government could not stop the mobs from unauthorizedly breaking the masjid. So I am pointing out to you this because today a Hindu mindset is essential for keeping our culture continuing to exist. And a Hindu mindset is not aimed at anybody else. It's aimed at improving yourself. The caste system, the Varna system has become out of date. It is not possible, according to me, to reform it. We should now forget about it and treat ourselves as nothing but Hindus, Hindus first and Hindus last, as far as our religion is concerned. People find me sometimes cracking jokes at the expense of the Nehru family. But these are jokes. But I would like to crack one joke with the permission of Swamiji. Dr. Ambedkar was from the scheduled caste community. He went to Columbia University in 1916. He wrote a PhD in economics, which is a top class. I am an economist, I know it. I've read the PhD thesis on monetary policy. Top class thesis. Got a prize. He of course also wrote books on Indian culture, which was it was very flattering to the Hindu civilization. He went to England, came back, he became a barrister there, got a law degree. He came to India and participated in the freedom struggle. He was always popularly referred to as Bhimrao. Nehru, born in a well-to-do family, went to England. He just about graduated. They have a gentleman degree which he got. But when he came back, people referred to him as Pandit Ji. I think it would have been more appropriate to refer to Dr. Ambedkar as Pandit Ji and Pandit Ji as Jawaharlal. These are what the caste ossification has done. So now we must regard ourselves as a Hindu. For a oneness of a country must know the true history. This whole history of Aryan Dravidianism is bogus. Because DNA studies on genetics has now proved that we are all one people. Even the people in Arunachal, they may have Chinese components in their race, but they are predominantly, their DNA is ours. So we are one people, whether we are a Brahmin or we are a scheduled caste, we have the same DNA. Whether we are North Indian, South Indian, we have the same DNA. West Indian or East Indian, the same DNA. I would challenge anyone who says that we are different to come to me for a test on DNA. I will show it. So when we are one people, why should we divide ourselves? Even Muslims and Hindus have the same DNA. Which means that most Muslims are, or more overwhelming, maybe 99.9% of the Muslims are of Hindu ancestry. They are descended from Hindus. Therefore they become part of the family. They were the large Hindustan family. So therefore we need to have not only to know and feel as a Indian, as a Hindu, but we must also know our history, the correct history. The history of valor, fighting. That we have this tradition, discovery, create the biggest economic miracle 1,000 years ago, for which people from all over the world came. Scientific discoveries, mathematics. What didn't we have, we did not discover? That was in the advanced frontiers in those days. So therefore, knowing Indian history is necessary. Now, for a scientific reason, I think what is necessary is slowly accepting that all of us must not only know our mother tongue, but we must also learn Sanskrit. That is a necessity for our science. I say science because, as Google, if you go to Google again, you will know, NASA conducted a study, how to store knowledge in a computer. And after 20 years, research came to the conclusion that the most computer-friendly language is Sanskrit, and therefore artificial intelligence will be taught with Sanskrit as compulsory language. We don't have to immediately go to Sanskrit as an official language, but we can certainly go on Sanskritizing the vocabulary of Hindi and ultimately making it into Sanskrit, just as way Adi Shankara Sanskritized Pali, and ultimately Pali became Sanskrit. So I think we have a huge task ahead, because forces are at work to divide us on a variety of things, to take us away from our roots. And we have to be safeguard against them. I'm not saying we close our windows, we must keep them open. But we must be so strong in our posture that nobody can make us bend. We may be faced with a major conflagration because the speed with which Taliban is gaining ground in Pakistan and therefore in Afghanistan, and their declared objective that India is an unfinished chapter of Islamic history. We may have to face a war for which unity would be necessary. And therefore I would say today, I salute all the sadhus and sannyasis of India who have, without any government assistance, have built and maintained this great religion. You can see, even in the structures here, I'm amazed that if without any government help you can do so much. What the government with the help of the sadhus and sannyasis can do. We have always been guided spiritually, whether it's the Vijayanagara Empire, it was the Shringeri Acharya, whether it is Shivaji, or whether it was any other of these great men of our history, they were guided. And they are people who have lived simple lives. I was always puzzled by, it stuck in my mind that when I first went as a student to get a PhD at Harvard University, my classmate asked me a question. Why you Indians followed Mahatma Gandhi when he wasn't even properly dressed? So I asked him, what do you mean by that? He said, well, in our country, if you don't dress with the best suit and tie and so on, we will not accept you as a leader. I said, if Mahatma Gandhi came, what would you do? He said, we'll put him in jail for indecent exposure. That's what we would do. It's a revelation that our country, we venerate sacrifice so much that our sadhus and sannyasis and our political leaders who have won the admiration and consciousness and dominated the consciousness of our people are people who have been extremely simple. It shows what value we have attached to wealth. It's a means to an end, it's not an end in itself. So these great values have to be brought back, and that can only be done by a Hindu renaissance, not by Hindu revival, or by Hindu, accepting everything that you hear as truth. We have to be questioning mind, but in the end, this society can rise and take every other community other than Hindu community. Also, as the boats rise with the tide rising, all of us can rise if this country has a Hindu renaissance. Thank you very much.